Oh boy. I just feel ridiculous. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show. I ran across some information this morning talking about JPay versus Securus versus GTL, which is Global Tel Link. When you think of the three big conglomerates in prison communication, prisoners communicating with their loved ones out in the free world. Well, those three big conglomerates, corporations are JPay, Securus, Global Tel Link. What I'm realizing, and first, let me share that why this is coming up is because I ran across some information talking about that if you're using JPay, they were getting ready to transfer the JPay over to Securus. So you're going to have to set up a Securus account if you already had a JPay account. And they were saying that this was quite a bit of a hassle and a pain in the ass, but it's what they're doing, so people have to do it. Some people were saying that they were losing their emails from loved ones through this transfer or this change. But something that I learned while first looking into this was that JPay is owned by Securus. And in fact, it was a couple of years ago, quite a few years ago at this point, maybe like 7 years ago at this point, where Securus Technologies would actually purchase JPay. Global Tel Link, on the other hand, I don't think is tied to these two at all. Though I'm sure Securus would like to get Global Tel Link. I don't know that Global Tel Link is larger than Securus. I doubt that they are. And if Securus Technologies is able to acquire Global Tel Link, well, they will certainly have a monopoly on prison communication. And the biggest scam in prison history that all of that seems to be. Folks, that's what we're getting ready to talk about in this video. I just did an interview recently with a guy by the name of Patrick. I've been doing a lot of interviews as of late, but Patrick served time in Ohio. He got locked up in 2017. He served 7 years. And an interesting thing amongst so much interesting stuff that he shared with me was that he said when he got to prison, they just gave him a tablet. And I thought to myself, why, how, like, that's crazy. But it also made me realize that if they're just giving away tablets to prisoners, then these companies that are providing communication services for prisoners have got to be making more money than all the money in the world, Craig. I mean, they got to be making a shit ton of money if they're just going to be giving away tablets to prisoners. Folks, is the new age technology, the new age way of communication between loved ones out here in the world and prisoners who are locked up in a prison somewhere serving time, is that communication being through JPay, Securus, Global Tel Link, email, video visits, digital cards, prison phone calls? Is all of that the biggest scam in prison history? We're getting ready to deep dive this topic here today on After Prison Show, folks. If you're liking what you're hearing so far, leave a like on this video, leave a comment on this video, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and make sure you turn on bell notifications. We are working hard over here to bring you guys the very best prison content that we possibly can. And it's with all of that being mentioned that what do you say we go ahead and we dive head first? Got to keep this one serious. Head first, I said that already, up into this video. I ran across a bunch of stories in relation to searching for information in regards to all of these communication companies, conglomerates that are providing communication services for prisons. But it was one story in particular, which is this story right here, which comes to us from a publication called The Appeal. This is probably going to be the best one in terms of information in regards to all that we're talking about here. The headline of the story reads, How Corporations Turn Prison Tablets into a Predatory Scheme. After giving tablets to incarcerated people, prison telecom giants are charging prisoners and their families exorbitant prices on everything from emails to movies. That's right. That's something else that I didn't even mention. You know, through these tablets, Not only are prisoners able to visit, do the video visits, email, get digital postcards and cards, but they're also able to watch movies and download music. The prices on some of this music and these movies is astronomical. And how these companies have been allowed to charge these type of prices, I don't honestly know. I don't understand how there's not regulations, more regulations. I know there's regulations that are starting to come into play. Hence the fact that Securus just bought JPay a couple of years ago. And a part of that merger, or whatever you want to call that, is because JPay got in trouble for the amount of money that they were charging prisoners, loved ones, families, whoever's putting money on the books of these accounts, taking advantage of people. You want to talk about exploitation? There is no bigger exploitation, in my personal opinion, in the prison industry than these communication companies. And now all of a sudden, I just read that, for a prison phone call, the max that they're able to charge now is 11 cents a minute. Back when I was serving time, they were charging upwards of 30 plus cents a minute, maybe even $1 a minute. But now all of a sudden you are starting to get more regulations and exposure to these bad practices that these companies have been doing for a long time. So this article is very long that comes to us from this Appeal publication. I'm going to break this thing down, just going through some of the sections of this. I'll share some of this information with you guys. They say back in early March 2020, as COVID-19 spread throughout, the country and the world, this is when these global communication companies really were killing it. A lot of jails and prisons were on lockdown. Prisoners couldn't really do too much. Maybe they're not getting wrecked. They're not able to go to programs. I'm not sure if these telecommunication companies were jacking up their prices during all of this. I'm sure that they probably wanted to be, but they certainly were making enough money as it was, with their prices being just where they were. Now, what I will say is that they did try to offer some kind of incentives during COVID. Like, I think they mentioned something like free reply Wednesdays and discounted movies and songs. But this article would go on to say that the movies and songs that were discounted or free were garbage. So this article talks about a prisoner in the state of New York by the name of Roger. I don't know why I'm doing the air quotations right there. Hell, his name probably is Roger. But he said that in 2017, JPay and these tablets first started coming into the prison where he was at. And in October of 2019, he got his tablet at no upfront cost. While the tablets gave incarcerated individuals access to email, music, ebooks, and even games, all those services came with hefty price tags. Yeah, we're going to give you the tablets for free, but you are going to pay an exuberant price for everything that you want to purchase for it. JPay calculated that the profits from the associated fees would outweigh the cost of providing the tablets without charge. You better bet your ass that it did. The tablets far exceeded what it was going to cost to give every prisoner a free tablet. In fact, with roughly 50,000 incarcerated people slated to receive tablets in prisons just throughout New York, JPay projected a net profit of about $8.8 million by August of 2022. That's what they predicted their profits to be. We're talking maybe 2 or 3 years later. I'm quite certain they exceeded those numbers. New York wasn't the only state to roll out prison tablet programs. Between 2017 and 2019, at least 11 other states entered into contracts with prison telecom companies such as Securus and GTL. Now, real quick, they said that they gave the tablets to prisoners for free, but they also mentioned entering into contracts with these states. I don't know much about a contract, especially between a big corporation and, the prison system, but I got to imagine that with a contract comes some sort of a monetary fee, right? We're going to provide tablets for all of your prisoners. We're going to give you a way to be able to limit contraband, minimize shit coming into the jail, a perfect way to flag any kind of nefarious communication or communication that you might want to have wind of without having to spend taxpayer dollars or whatever, your funding on having a guard positioned with a pair of headphones on, listening to every single call, right? We're giving you a way to streamline communication between prisoners and their loved ones. Meanwhile, you're going to get a kickback, okay? Because we're going to make buku dollars. This is the pitch between Securus Technologies and the prison system, I imagine, or GTL or JPay. We're going to keep contraband out of your facility, and all we need is a low one-time price of just $20 million or some shit like that, right? Like how valuable is what these telecommunication companies providing to the prison system? How valuable is it? I pretty much think in the mind of the prisons and the governments and the corporations themselves, the sky's the limit, Georgie. You know what I mean? Like it's priceless. They don't mention if there was a monetary value attached to these contracts that these states were entering into, but I got to imagine that there was. The tablets promised hundreds of thousands of incarcerated people across the country access to new forms of communication, information, and entertainment. We have anticipation and hope to make it a good educational tool. Somebody from Ohio Department of Corrections said, but in reality, the proliferation of prison tablets feeds into the broader trend of predatory corporations gouging incarcerated people and making billions off a captive market. Literally, they are captive. Over the past 4 decades, while the nation's prison population has swelled to unprecedented levels, corrections systems have provided inadequate funding for programs, services, and essential goods. At the same time, correction officials have outsourced this spending to private corporations, which have turned prison services into a multi-billion-dollar retail industry. Under the current system, incarcerated individuals are forced to purchase extra food, clothing, hygiene, and other goods from external vendors who charge exorbitant rates for services as simple as phone calls, money transfers, and commissary transactions. When you go to jail, you think, yeah, I got 3 meals, I got a shower and everything, but it's not as easy as it sounds, says Juan, who served nearly a decade in New York State prisons. Prison is expensive, he continued. You need money to live there. You better bet that you do. And yes, they have outsourced everything. Have you seen the cost of a ramen noodle in prison these days? I personally have not, but I got to imagine it's probably pushing P close to, 75 cents or $1 at this point. If it's not, it's every bit of 55 cents. If it's 38 cents, that's exactly the same price as it is in the streets. The story goes on to say that the pandemic only compounded that burden. Yep, we know that. Everybody was locked down. People weren't able to make money. There were stimulus checks. Shit was tight. Tensions were high in the prison system. And these telecommunication companies were gouging the shit out of people's pockets. Okay, let's talk about JPay right here. JPay made its first foray into prison tablets in 2012. Yeah, I remember. Back when I was serving time, I got released in 2015 after serving 7 years. Toward the end of my incarceration, which 2012 was getting close to the end of it, they were just starting to bring in the JP4 player. Or the JP3 player. I can't remember exactly which one it was. It was the first of its kind. The joint was as thick as a roll of toilet paper, and you couldn't do a whole lot on it. I think you could do some emails on it, but you had to plug it into the kiosk to be able to send those emails. Those were 25 cents a whop. They were trying to get rid of the physical mail, which they hadn't done at that point. They probably have by this point. You couldn't really get pictures on it. I can't remember. The only games that you could get on it were like Pong and the most cheesy of the cheesy games. Now I'm hearing of prisoners getting PlayStations in prison. Like, shit is changing. But that's a totally different subject. JPay made its way onto the scene in 2012. And they weren't giving prisoners tablets for free like what's going on nowadays. You had to pay roughly around $140 for those tablets. If I can remember correctly, I think that the price was about that. To download a song was $2. But in this article, man, they talk about songs and movies being even more expensive than all of that. In 2015, JPay was acquired by Securus, a prison telecommunication company that had raked in over $114 million in profits in 2014 alone. You remember they were talking about making, we're going to make, maybe like $8 million in profit over the course of 3 years. They're saying, right, and this was before those projected numbers. Those projected numbers were in like 2020 somewhere. These numbers are what they were actually making back in 2014, $114 million in profits in 1 year. But then again, that 8.8 million, they were only talking about the state of New York. So it is plausible to think nationwide over $100 million a year, probably a lot more than that, especially nowadays. And this was only from its phone services in 2,600 prisons and jails across 46 states. That's how much money they made just in phone calls, $114 million. Now they got the emails, the books, the movies, the music. Shit, $114 million ain't nothing but a drop in the bucket. They're probably doing $1 billion a year or better. The Securus CEO at the time, Rick Smith, hailed the merger of Securus buying JPay as an opportunity to tap into the fastest growing segments in corrections, payments, emails, and most recently, inmate tablets. The acquisition also represented an attempt to diversify at a time when Securus was facing increased scrutiny from federal regulators and prison rights activists over its phone services. These people were already under fire for what they were charging, running the phone systems in the jails and prisons, and now they got the monopoly on the whole conglomeration. They got your phone calls, they got your visits, they got everything that you can have in relation to your entertainment in prison and your communication between your loved ones. Talking about they was already under scrutiny. 6 months after the JPay acquisition was announced, the Federal Communications Commission voted to cap local and long-distance calls from state and federal prisons at 11 cents a minute. Remember what I was paying back when I was in jail and prison? 30 cents, 25 cents, upwards of $1 a minute. By 2019, it looked like the bet on the prison iPads market had already paid off. Between 2017 and 2019, JPay signed lucrative contracts with New York, Connecticut, Missouri to distribute the tablets to their incarcerated populations. Remember, I was just toying with the idea of what those contract numbers could look like. They're saying here that they were lucrative. I wonder how lucrative. That's underlined like I could tap on it. Should I? Let's just see what that means. Lucrative contracts. Here's a whole article right here. Yeah, that whole thing, the lucrative contracts. How lucrative? If you enjoy this video and you want to see a part 2, leave a like and a comment letting me know that, and we'll dive deep into exactly how lucrative those contracts are. You will be shocked. Maybe, probably not, actually. JPay's main competitor, GTL, which you gotta imagine, Securus has already bought JPay. You got to imagine they got their sights set on GTL, Global Tel Link, as well. Secured similar agreements with 6 more states. By then, both companies had decided to distribute the tablets for free. And why not? We're already making $1 bazillion off of this industry. The tablets ain't costing us shit. We're getting them off of Temu, for $10 a piece. Both JPay and GTL charge prisoners at every step of the communication process in New York. Each email sent or received requires a stamp, which costs 25 cents, twice if that message exceeds 6,000 characters, or if it includes a picture or a card. For 4 stamps, friends and families can also send a 30-second videogram to loved ones inside. So for $1, you can send a short or a reel to your loved ones. I was a part of a Facebook group that was about GTL loved ones trying to, be in relationships with prisoners. And a lot of what I was seeing women posting about in that group was shit getting denied, trying to send pictures, trying to send, most everything that you're trying to send. It's scrutinized. It's rejected for whatever reason. I've seen that there's a lot of problems getting shit approved to your loved one who's serving time. Music, movies, ebooks, and games can also be downloaded on JPay tablets for exuberant fees. Songs are listed for as much as $2.50 each, and a single album can cost up to $46. How much is a CD costing you out here in the world? Can you even buy a CD out here? Talking about $46. That sounds like double the price of what it would cost out here in society. Renting a movie can cost between $2 and $25. Man, what you watching for $25? Titanic? Like, where they do that at? You could send your whole family to the movies. Well, you could go to the movies, you and somebody else, get you a popcorn and a drink for probably $25, a daytime matinee. But $25 to rent a movie while locked up is crazy. Until November of 2019, when the company backed down in the face of public pressure, JPay was selling incarcerated individuals in a handful of states ebooks. Pay attention to what I'm getting ready to share with you. They ain't talking about backing down from the $25 to rent a movie and the $46 for the album. Man, these greedy SOBs were selling incarcerated individuals in a handful of states ebooks that were sourced from Project Gutenberg. Folks, if you don't know what Project Gutenberg is, I don't know neither, but they go on to say it was a database of free books. Man, they go into the library. They getting free books and they selling them. You ain't making enough money off of prisoners. You Securus son of a bitch. JPay, GTL. You making money hand over fist. You probably got the SSGTL Securus JPay Lil Yachty out here in the world making so much damn money. You probably about to get into SpaceX. You probably invest in it. Y'all making billions. I'm not kidding. They are making billions of dollars a year. Well, Joe, no, actually, we're not. You've got a little bit of wrong information right there. We're probably only making about $500,000 to $700,000 a year, not $1 billion. But they so greedy, man. They taking books from free databases and charging prisoners for those too. Hey, that should get me a little hot under my collar thinking about that. As expensive as they were to use, tablets quickly became a hot commodity in prison, enticing incarcerated individuals with the promise of new opportunities for entertainment and connecting with loved ones outside. Chris, a self-described old head who served a 7-year sentence in New York, noticed that the younger prisoners in particular flocked to the JPay tablets. They looked like kids in a candy store. They were on the tablets all day long. Yo, back when I served time, it was already expensive enough having your loved ones send you money for commissary, putting money on the phone. Now think about this. Now you renting movies, got to buy books, doing video visits. Now you spending even more money to serve time. Even more burden on your loved ones out there. Your prison job ain't going to pay shit in relation to this. Your hustle, you better have a good one if you're going to be able to afford what all of this is going to cost you. Between March and December of 2020, Roger, that prisoner from New York that the story started out talking about, estimated having spent at least $900 or about $100 a month just on emails to his family and music and movie downloads, up from the roughly $30 per month he spent from the same services before the pandemic. So we're talking about during COVID, how hard all of this shit was hitting during then. According to Roger, that was far less than what some of his peers and their families were putting out. Other sources corroborated Roger's observation, saying that tablets became a necessity in prison, with some incarcerated people racking up bills as high as $1,000 a month. Man, this shit crazy. The spending surged even as companies like JPay announced promotional offers when prisons went into lockdown. Beginning in April of 2020, JPay offered temporary discounted prices on selected movies and songs. It also established free reply Wednesdays, allowing families to attach one free reply to paid emails sent from jails and prisons. So yeah, it looks like they were, trying to offer minimal perks for all of the money that these companies were making, especially during the pandemic. You think about predatory practices. Well, during lockdown, they certainly were practicing those. Folks, I just wanted to share this with you. The telecommunications monopoly that Securus has right now over the prison systems, acquiring JPay and probably having their eyes set on GTL as well, seems to be quite the scam, the biggest scam in prison history, in my personal opinion. And I want to share something that just came to mind. Securus probably won't buy GTL, because if they did, well, then for reals, they got the monopoly on the industry, which would certainly put them under a lot more scrutiny. Hey, we can both work this thing together and absolutely make trillions of dollars, potentially. Yeah, they're probably in cahoots, to say the least. Again, just wanted to share this with you guys. Let me know what you think, what your experience with any of these companies has been. If you've got anything insightful to share, please leave a like and a comment on this video, letting us know about your particular experience with any of the companies talked about here today. Hey, look, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did so, please leave a like and a comment letting me know exactly what you thought about all of this. As always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world, never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day. Peace!